Previously, we learned that if the user input is used within the page, then the page might be vulnerable to a HTML injection or to an XSS. We also learned that the context or the place where the user input is used is very important because it might limit us or even in some cases prevent us from injecting JavaScript code in the page. So we said we should first try to inject JavaScript within the constraint that we have, and we saw an example of injecting JavaScript code within the href argument. But sometimes the user input might be used in a place that simply does not accept JavaScript code. For example, the user input might be used within an image source. In such cases, we can edit the payload to first complete the existing code and exit the constraint that we are in, and then inject the code that we want to execute. Let me explain it better to you in an example. Now I have the first DOM-based lab loaded in here in Burp browser. And let's start with this search bar. Now we had an example of a similar website before in the previous class where it was a search bar, and the first thing we did is, well, basically we used it normally to see if it actually works. And then the next thing we did is we tried to use a HTML injection like what we're doing here. So we basically put some HTML tags to make the text bold, and we searched for it. In the previous example, this was bold, so we knew we had a HTML injection. But in this example, we can see that that is not the case. The B's are still being displayed in here, so they're not really being injected in the page. The page knows that this is not part of the code and it's just the value, which is not good for us because we're trying to get HTML code or JavaScript code to be injected within the page and interpreted within the page. So in a similar situation, you might want to right click and inspect the element and just look at where your code is being injected. Now a good idea is to simply, while you're in inspect element, do Control F and search in here for whatever you injected. So I'm just going to paste it here, and we can see that this is the first occurrence. But we can see that it's there in two parts of the web page. So if we look for the second one in here, you'll see that it's also, we have an image within the page, and now we can't really see the image, it's not loading, but we can see that we have an image tag, and the source of the image is this. And for some reason, the search term after the image, after the tracker, is whatever we typed in our text box. So search term is equal to B spider /B, and all of that is being put within an image tag. Because whatever we're typing in here is being displayed in here, this should give you a clue. Well, maybe you'll be able to somehow leverage this to your advantage and be able to inject some JavaScript code in here. The main issue in this example is you have an open quote and a closing quote in here, and whatever we're injecting is being placed within this quote. Therefore, as far as this element, as far as HTML is concerned, we have an image tag with an src which specifies the location of the image, and that's enclosed within two quotes. Therefore, anything within that is actually considered as part of the image path. And therefore, even if you have code in here, it's just going to consider that as part of the image path. Therefore, the first thing you're going to need to do is type a single quote to actually close this open single quote. So we're going to close it manually so that anything we type is actually going to be written after or inserted or injected after the close, after the src tag. And then, just like what we've seen, close this like this, close everything. So now we close the image tag because we closed the quote to close the path, and then close the actual image tag with the sign. And then you can actually put a script, just like we have in here, script alert, whatever, and that should run. Alternatively, if you want to use even less tags, you can use the on error or on load. So we're going to do on load. I want to run an alert. And let's say alert 3 this time. So all I'm doing in this example now, I'm closing the first quote to exit the src value, the value for the path. And then I'm saying on load, once this image loads, I want to run some JavaScript, which is alert 3. And let's just close the tag with this sign right here. And let's search for it. And perfect. As you can see, our JavaScript runs as well. So the main takeout lesson from this example is, first of all, close whatever HTML element that you have. Make sure you complete it and then inject your code, unless you can inject the code within the element. So the element that we have right now is an image element. Whatever we're injecting was being injected within the SRC. We can't run JavaScript code within the SRC. That's why we first closed it and then injected our code in the onload. Or alternatively, you can even close this image and then inject your code in here, as I showed you earlier with this kind of payload, where you first close the image element and then add your script element.